In the Omicron gamble, how will we even know if we're winning? My name's Mike Cashman. If you find what I'm saying is interesting or useful, please subscribe to the channel. Britannia waives the rules. A couple of days ago, I made a video about the latest Omicron situation. I wanted to add to that a key point which has been emphasised by or has become more obvious as a result of what the government has been saying since then. We need to concentrate on outcomes. The government very often focuses on the measures or the activities, and that's been true all the way through the pandemic. We want to do 100,000 tests per day. We want to have 25,000 contact tracers straight away. That was a big waste. There wasn't the work there for them to do. And now we want to offer every eligible adult a booster vaccine by the end of December. It turned out that was make the offer by the end of December, not actually put the jab in the arm. And that's been declared a success because everybody was offered one. That is an activity, that's not the result. The offer of a jab doesn't result in any protection for anybody unless the jab actually goes into the arm. This is the equivalent of tackling rugby or football on the basis of when we get the ball, let's boot it up the field, or even let's pass it around without focusing on where it is that we're trying to get to. Now, it's particularly ironic that the government is making this mistake because I worked in international development. I still have some role in that. And before that, I worked in commercial project management. And I think the world of international development has things to learn from the world of commercial project management. But one thing that international development consistently does better than commercial project management on is being focused on the outcomes, because all the donors, this includes the British government and the EC and the US and whatever, insist on there being clarity on outcomes, on what it is that you're seeking to achieve, and you work backwards from that to decide what activities you will initiate and how you will measure that. And now, so I have been in conference rooms in Sierra Leone as we've been talking about Ebola eradication, in dusty rooms in the south of Kenya looking at maternal and child health and nutrition, in Amman in Jordan planning how we can best arrange education for children in the rebel-held areas of Syria. And the insistence here has always been from the donor, from the UK government, for example, in the case of Sierra Leone and Syria, those cases that I quoted, the insistence has always been, let us make sure that we focus on the outcomes. You don't even get started on any international development grant. You don't get any interest from any donor unless you start off with, this is the outcome that we're seeking to achieve. And so it's particularly ironic that during this time in which some expertise that the UK government has needed has been the understanding of how in this sort of situation you need to work towards defined outcomes and work backwards from that, and that expertise is particularly there in international development. It's particularly ironic that the UK government decided to take away from the cabinet table somebody with a focus on international development, to not have that focus at the cabinet table. It becomes one more thing for the Foreign Secretary to consider, along with now, the rest of her portfolio and Brexit and everything else. And I don't perceive any knowledge or understanding of international development in the head of Liz Truss. Whereas Justine Greening, for example, Rory Stewart, understood these areas very deeply. All that expertise and awareness, all laid to waste, all ignored, just at the time when we needed it. But this government, and just listen to the language of any of the ministers that talk about it, it is always about measures. The debate is always about measures, and it's a sterile debate because it has become one-dimensional from the Tory government. Do we carry on as we are with freedom, or are you suggesting more lockdown? Because then you're an interfering busybody. So I've just seen the latest Independent Sage. They broadcast every week on Fridays at 1:30. A whole collection of facts and figures, more that we're learning. And, for example, that the vaccine efficacy against Omicron is not as good as we had hoped, and particularly that it does tend to wane. It's still very well worth having. And don't get me wrong, the booster campaign was a great thing to do. It was a great set of activities. It did get us closer to the outcomes that we would hope for. But if we had a government focused on outcomes, they wouldn't now be saying, well, we achieved that target, tick in the box. Can we have a newspaper headline giving us some congratulations? Now what's next? They would be focused on what is it that we're seeking to achieve. Great example from Independence Age just now of measures, protections that are not lockdowns, saying, for example, if a restaurant or a bar introduces better ventilation, then they can advertise that. That makes it a safer place for people to go. More people can go there. That will boost the economy. Those who are vulnerable can be more confident about going out there, improving their mental health. None of that is lockdown. None of that is restrictions. But it's all things that could help towards the outcome that we're seeking of reduced infection, reduced hospitalisation, bringing down the number of deaths, keeping schools open, having more people come and go back to work. So, as I say, it's ironic that the government seems to have a blind spot there. This is not the fault of the modelers, the scientists, or anybody else. This is a question of leadership, a question of understanding where you're going and having your motivation wanting to achieve the right results, not just wanting to achieve short-term headlines. So it is a point I've made before. In order to teach critical thinking to my grandchildren, I devised a story when the Cove Giants came, and you can find that on YouTube. And you don't have to go through all the lessons learned at the end if you don't want to, but they are there. And my grandchildren love that story, love the point where the wise old wizard says, yeah, but what do you really want? But you have to watch the story if you want to get the whole point of it. But it's about critical thinking. It's about understanding the outcome that you're seeking to get to, not just the measures that you're taking in order to get there. Anyway, if that's been of interest, please subscribe to the channel. Britannia Waves the Rules. Thank you.